Oh, hello. My name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Woe. Somehow we're already at the middle of the month, guys. Like, I don't know when this happened, but time is just flying so fast. This is one of those months where, because it is almost exactly 4 weeks, for some reason it makes it feel shorter to me. I don't know why that is, but anyway. So I'm filming on the 15th, which is exactly the middle of the month, and it's been a pretty good reading month so far. So I so far have read about 9 books, I believe. So if we're projecting out, this is looking like it's going to be roughly an 18-book kind of month for me. And I mostly really enjoyed the things that I've read. I've got a couple of kind of things that I'm not as wild about. We'll talk about that. And then I definitely have a few things that I have to get to in the back half of this month. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I'm looking at sort of what is left on my TBR versus if I'm assuming I've only got probably about 9 books left in me for the month. I may need to adjust my plans, but we will get to that. It is Father's Day weekend, which is a hard one for me this year just because it's my first one without my dad, but I kind of am hermiting out after I finish filming this. It's really the last thing I have to do. So I'm just gonna chill, and hopefully maybe I actually might end up getting through, I probably could get through 3 books this weekend if I really go into hermit mode. So I don't know. We'll see if I end up having a little bit more volume that I'm able to get to, but enough of my yapping. Let's get to the books. So in terms of things I've already read, maybe I'll start with 2 that I sort of have not permanently DNF'd, but put to the side for now. The first one is This Lie Will Kill You, which is a YA mystery thriller that, from what I can tell, I think is meant to be sort of a mashup between And Then There Were None and I Know What You Did Last Summer. The premise of this I'm really excited about, but I've been struggling to get into the writing. So I think I'm going to push pause on this for the moment. I will come back to this and either definitively say I'm not going to finish it, like permanently DNF it, or I'll finish it. But had a hard time getting into it, so I just sort of push pause. And then the other one that I started and have made a decision about is BLOODWITCH. Now here's where I have landed. I really like the Witchland books a lot. Specifically Sight Witch is like, I really enjoyed that. I put that on my favorite fantasy reads of the year list last year. I think that there's a lot to love about this series, but I have to tell you, I think that this is a series that, at least for me, is only gonna work if I sit down and binge the whole thing start to finish. And that is because the amount of detail in these books that you have to remember is just getting to the point where I cannot remember. Like, I literally just am unable to fully appreciate the books because there's just so much that happens, and there's like all these little details that I think are really cool, and like when I notice them and see them connecting, it makes me excited, but there's just too many of them to keep track of with this amount of time between publication dates. This is the 3rd, I would argue really the 4th book in this series. I think there's at least 2 more, and I'm just going to end up DNFing this if I don't allow myself to just do a full binge. So what I've decided is that I will wait until all of these books are out. I will go back to the beginning and I will read straight the way through. And I think that will be a really satisfying reading experience. I was chatting with Amanda and Bethany about this because I think Amanda is maybe closer to me on this than Bethany is, in terms of like a little frustrated with some of the pacing and like just decisions that are getting made with these books. But I think Bethany has a good defense of it, which is basically like, if you like RPG type games, I think that it rewards that kind of mindset this series does. And I think you might have more patience for the amount of time between these books and kind of what its project is on an ongoing basis. And I think in talking through it, I think where I landed, and I don't know the degree to which they would agree with me, I'll let them speak for themselves, but I think that this probably would have been a more successful series because this has like some passionate fans for it, but I think there's a lot of people who probably are more in my camp of like, there's a lot of stuff about this I really like, but I'm struggling to really get into this series at this point. And I think that this series may have been more successful if they had just gone ahead and made it adult. There's not a lot in this that makes it YA, to be totally honest. Like, if they'd made it adult, and then if they had made it a couple, like maybe 3 really chunky tomes, I think that maybe this would have been more successful because I think each book would have more plot in it. And I think that it would be, I think just in terms of reader expectation and sort of like the pacing of the series would make more sense in that format. I don't know. All that to say, it makes it sound like I hate this. It's not that I like had a strong anti-reaction to this. I think I just felt myself not loving it the way I hoped I would. And I was like, I want to give myself the best chance to really love this series. And I think I've realized that for me, the best chance to do that will be to binge it. So I am DNFing this for now, and once all the books are out, I will resume the series. And then the only other thing I've read so far that I didn't love, and I did finish this one, but did not really enjoy it at all, is A Dark and Stormy Night by, I think, Jeanne M. Dams. And I think I need to just I'm gonna wait and talk about that in my end of the month wrap up, but I was just real disappointed in it, and it's making me wonder if I just don't really like modern cozy mysteries. But I need to sit with that more because I don't want to give up on that genre, and I'm trying to identify what it is in this type of book that I have not really enjoyed in the last few years. So yeah, stay tuned for that. I'll talk about that more at the end of the month when I've had time to sort of sit with my thoughts. So let's then transition into some things I read that I absolutely love, chief among them definitely being Sleeping Murder by Agatha Christie. This is the last published Marple book, and I've been doing my Miss Marple reread called Mission Marple. This was the last full novel that was published. It was actually, I believe, published after her death, but it was written in the 40s. And I mean, I'll do my full review as a part of Mission Marple. I think that probably won't be until later in July. I've just been in the mood for Marple recently, so I got really ahead. But I loved this book, and I wonder if some of what I loved about it was that I think it might be if not the one of the last really good Christies that I've not read previously. So it was just giving me that feeling that I love when I'm reading a really good Agatha Christie, and that just felt really special and magical in terms of just really enjoying that experience and diving deep into it. And yeah, it was just really a refreshing, nostalgic almost reading experience, because it just reminded me of how I felt the first time I read some of the really great Christies. So anyway, I don't know that it's objectively as good as it was for me. I gave it a 4.5 star, which is a favorite of the year. I'm not sure if it's actually really that. It might objectively be more like a 4 star, but I just enjoyed the hell out of it. So that was definitely the best thing I've read so far this month. But I read a lot of others. I've been reading a lot of other things that I've really enjoyed. Probably right after Sleeping Murder, my next favorite would be Storm of Locusts, which I actually just finished last night. And I was wavering between giving this a 4 or a 4.5 star. I landed on a 4 star just because I think that there are some issues, especially the further I got into the book in terms of really thinking about what the character motivations are, and just feeling like they don't 100% make sense. The central relationship between Maggie and Kai, I think that the way it's talked about in this book, which is the second book in the series, would make more sense if there had been at least one more book in terms of the depth and intensity of the feelings dynamic between them. I think I would have liked one more book to flesh that out before this type of conflict arose. That being said, I had so much fun in this book, and I loved Maggie, Rissa, and Ben together. Yes, it was the girl gang that I love. I mean, look at them on, the cover of this is amazing, and I think it definitely very successfully captures the mood of this book. This series is so dark, and it is not afraid to kill and maim people in it that you love. It will go there. I think at the end of the month, as a part of my wrap up, I need to have a sit down and talk through with you guys as to if I think that these books are objectively better than Kate Daniels, which is a big statement. If you watch this channel, you know that. I think that there is a chance that these objectively are better than Kate Daniels, even though I think I would still tell you I prefer Kate Daniels. These books are amazing. If you like urban fantasy, but you got burnt out because it was just getting really samey, I think that this would be a great series for you to kind of dip your toes back in, because I think that these books are a true step forward in terms of the types of characters, the world itself, and the kind of intensity and thematic content of it. So anyway, I really enjoyed this, and yeah, it was between a 4 and a 4.5, but I think I'm gonna give this a 4, even though I really had a fantastic time reading this book. It was really, really good. And then a few other things that I read and enjoyed. So I did read The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs by Steve Brusatte, I think, or Brusatte, I'm not sure. It was just really very nerdy, very sciencey, but because he so clearly loves the shit out of all things related to dinosaurs, his enthusiasm really, I think, carries the book and makes it special. I don't know that it's the best popular science writing I've ever read, because I don't think that he makes it quite accessible enough to be in that real top tier of science writing, but I think he gives you enough context clues that you can pick up technical terms as you go. And I learned a lot about both, the rise and fall of the dinosaurs, but also just about evolutionary biology and how it is studied and how they kind of figure out what was going on with various species in their evolutionary history, but also extinct species. So anyway, I thought it was really interesting, and just, yeah, he's such a nerd about that topic, so that just made it fun to read in that respect. And I listened to the audio, and I would recommend that. I thought it was a good audio. So I gave that one 4 stars. 2 other 4 stars, and I'll tell you about a couple of 3.5 stars I've read. So The Kingdom by Jess Rothenberg. So I picked this up on the recommendation of Bethany because she really loved this book and has been championing it. And I totally see why, because I think that this is really good speculative YA. I would probably call this sci-fi dystopia, probably is the right genre for this. And basically it's positing a world where there's a lot of sort of human android hybrids. So kind of human, but kind of just robots. They're a mishmash. And the most famous ones are at something that's clearly meant to basically be Disney, and they're princesses, and they are essentially slaves. And there is a murder that happens with our main character as the lead suspect. So we spend the book in a dual timeline kind of figuring out if she did it or not, and if she did it, why she did it. So I thought that this was really good. You guys know I'm a little bit of a hard sell on a dual timeline. I think that it's not never a good idea, but I think you have to have some level of justification of why you're doing it, because I find more often than not the reason people do a dual timeline is that the story itself is not strong enough to sustain itself linearly. And when you really break down what happens, the reason they broke it up is because they don't have enough going on in either timeline to hold your interest. So I find that's often what happens, and the result of that is that I'm much more into one timeline than the other. I did have one of the timelines I preferred, but I was pretty engaged in both, and I think that this is one of the rare cases where I don't feel like it was a total just band-aid over some plot problems. So it was just really, I think it was thematically really deep, and something I really feel like is a great example of YA, what YA can do in terms of discussing themes with emerging, with growing readers, because, it gets a lot into what makes us human. There's a lot in here about gender because of the princess aspect and this idea of building a perfect woman and what that means and some of the seedier undertones of that. There's a lot in here to really and I really enjoyed my time with it. I didn't love it. It's not a favorite of the year, but I would definitely recommend this, and I totally see why Bethany loved it. I think it just is going to be what kind of mysteries you prefer and some just paste type things. But I think objectively, this is really well written, really thoughtful thematically, and just different. I haven't really read something quite like this before. So I thought that good job to this author for coming up with a really genuinely interesting kind of premise. And I think if I remember rightly, she's an editor. So that probably contributes to why this is really pretty solidly written, especially for YA. So yeah, recommend this one. And then the other 4-star that I had so far is An English Murder by Cyril Hare. So eventually I am going to include this in one of my 3 isolated closed circle mystery review videos, probably next month, because I think I'm going to do a Christmas in July type theme. So I won't go too long into this. I'll just say that Cyril Hare is a golden age of detective fiction author that I had not read before. His work was new to me, but he was writing sort of in that 40s, 50s window where there was a lot of great sort of classic mystery being written, and I hadn't read him before, and I really enjoyed this. This book is really it's funny. It's got kind of a sort of charming, witty type tone to it, but it also has some pretty biting political commentary, and one of these characters, like basically, I think that this is a great example of like how everything new is really old because basically this is about like the rise of populism and nationalism after World War II and like some of the like racist stuff that was going on. So I thought that was just fascinating. And I think the mystery is good, not great, but I really enjoyed my time with the characters and setting. So the mystery was maybe like not the most innovative or like the hardest to figure out. Like I figured out pretty quickly who I thought done it. But yeah, I thought that overall this was really enjoyable. Definitely gave me the isolated closed circle thing that I love. And yeah, it definitely had a cool kind of like wintry vibe to it. So definitely excited to read more from him. And then a couple of 3.5s that I really enjoyed, but just had like one thing wrong with them that kept me from giving it the 4-star. So, and actually, you know what? It's the same thing in both. Both of these take too long to get going and like are kind of sluggish at first. Once they get to what they're doing, they do a lot better. So Rogue Protocol is the third in the Murderbot Diaries series, which you guys know is one of my favorite things I read this year. All Systems Red was just so great. I gave that 5 stars. And this is still really enjoyable. I think the character work she does in this series is just excellent. And I loved Mickey. Like every book, I feel like she introduces at least one new character that I fall in love with and gives me so many like feelings. And that was Mickey in this case. But I just think that the plot in this was just real sluggish getting going. And considering it's like 160 pages, like let's get to getting here. So I do think that this series, at least for me, is losing steam a little bit, but I just love spending time in this world and with Murderbot and friends so much that I'm pretty forgiving of that. So 3.5 stars. I'm wondering if I'll really love, I've only got one left in this series, and I'm wondering if I'm really going to love that just as like bringing it all together. I think there's a full novel that's coming out next year. But anyway, we'll see. I'm still going in the series. Not the best one, but still really enjoyed it. And then Sleep was the same thing. This is another isolated closed circle mystery, and it just has too much of a ramp up. I'm finding that in this trope, it's better for people to sort of like get to the point. I think they tend to do better if they're a little on the shorter side. And I'm going to talk about this more in a 3-book review I have going up next week, which will all be isolated closed circle mysteries set at hotels. So I will talk more about that then. But I still really, once it got to the real plot, I was really into this and really enjoyed it. Okay, so now we reach the part of the video where we talk about what I might read next. So I just realized that I have 7 things that I know I need to read. And if we're sticking with my 9-book projection, that means I only really have 2 extra slots left. But we'll see how that goes, because like I said, I am going to kind of be playing Hermit this weekend, so I may be able to sneak in an extra, maybe get like another 1 or 2 extra in for this month, so we'll see. But the 7 that I know that I'm going to read, so first of all, I have my next In Death book, which will be Indulgence in Death. I have that out already from the library, so I will be reading that. And I did get started on it. It's a little slow getting going, but I love the In Death series, so I'm sure it will get to getting eventually. Next, I have The Island out from the library, which is another isolated closed circle mystery. This time, the conceit is that there's people stuck on an island, and I think there's a recurring detective in this one. So I believe it's Scandinavian of some kind, the author, so I think it's fiction in translation. And yeah, I'm excited to get to that one before it has to go back to the library. As a matter of fact, once I'm done filming this video, I may very well go ahead and knock that one out. So I've got that. And then a novella that I need to read or really would like to read this month is Diamond Fire by Ilona Andrews. And that is because I have an arc of Sapphire Flames. I'm so excited about that. And so I want to read the novella before I read that full novel. This is the continuation of the Hidden Legacy series. Guys, I'm so excited. You guys know how much I love Ilona Andrews. I really enjoyed that Hidden Legacy series. I like saved them up, and not last Thanksgiving, but the Thanksgiving before. So in 2017, I binge read them all Thanksgiving week, and it was just like one of the highlights of my reading year that year. So I'm really excited to get back into this world, and I'd been saving the novella for right before I was going to read the full book. So I'm going to read Diamond Fire this month, and then next month I'm going to read Sapphire Flames, because I don't want to read too far in advance, but that's my thought. And then the other 4 things I have, these are things I have to read either for a challenge or for like book club / buddy read. So In West Mills by Deshaun Charles Winslow, is a book I'm reading for a challenge that I will tell you guys about, I think in July is when that video will go up, but this is the book I need to read for that this month. Gorgeous cover, right? I wouldn't be reading this, to be totally honest with you, if it wasn't for that challenge, but it's about, like, it's historical fiction set from like 1940 to 1987, aka the year I was born, so I resent a little bit that being considered historical fiction. But I think it's about a Black community in a small North Carolina town, and like the friendships and like relationships that are kind of like formed to thrive in that kind of environment. So I think it sounds like the kind of historical fiction or sort of like general fiction that I could like, so optimistic about this. We'll see how I do with that. I've got The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, which is a big bestseller right now. This is for a book club I'm in at work. This was what they picked. I'd thought about reading this anyway, so this sort of pushed me into definitely doing that. And yeah, I think it's sort of like, if I'm remembering rightly, the premise is that a wife comes home, shoots her husband dead, and then won't talk about it after that. And they're trying to figure out why she won't talk. So yeah, I think that this will just be sort of light fun. And then for my classics book club at my local independent bookstore, we are reading A Handful of Dust by Evelyn Waugh this month. And yeah, I'm really excited about this. On my classics TBR for the year, I wanted to read my first Evelyn Waugh, which was going to be Brideshead Revisited, but now it will be A Handful of Dust. And I'm pretty optimistic about this. I think that I'm really going to like it. And I think tomorrow this might be the book that I read. So I've got to get to that. And then I am buddy reading The 10th Girl by Sarah Faring with Bethany and a couple of other people. I don't remember who. She's coordinating the buddy reading of it all. I think maybe Amanda from The Naughty Librarian is going to join us for this one. But basically this is a YA thriller set at like a boarding school on an island, which sounds great. This is coming out in September and was very hyped coming out of BookCon / BEA. So I'm excited about this. I'm hoping that I'm really going to enjoy it and it will be fun to do a buddy read of it. So I don't know, maybe this is another one. Maybe that'll be my plan for this weekend, is if I can get The Island, Handful of Dust, and this read, that'd be pretty great. So maybe that'll be my goal for the next day and a half. Definitely possible, guys. You guys know I read really fast, especially if it's like some of this. A Handful of Dust might take me a little longer because I gather it's, it's a classic. It's more literary fiction, so that might take a little longer. But in terms of genre fiction, I read pretty quickly. Oh, and I guess I do have one other book I need to read this month, but it doesn't have to be this month. It has to be between now and the next one of these videos, and that is my reading mug pick. So last month, or between last time and now, I read The Buried Giant. I actually ended up DNFing that, but that was the one that was in this jar that I took care of. So now let's pick 3 new options and we will find out which one I'm going to read between now and our next video. Okay, ooh, some of you will be very excited to hear this. Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo is an option. Yes, I have not yet read that book. But I want to, because I want to understand what the hype is. Also, I own Crooked Kingdom in physical form, and I want to find out if I actually want to continue and read that. So that's one of my options. Let's see here. The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin is another option. So 2 fantasy ones so far, 1 YA and 1 adult. I know a lot of you guys really want me to read The Fifth Season as well, so there you go. And then last but not least, we've got I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith, which is sort of like a coming-of-age Bildungsroman type thing. So, okay. I'm gonna say The Fifth Season is pretty chunky and probably not what I want to read right now because of another book that I would like to get to this month. So I'm gonna say definitely not that one. So I'm either gonna do I Capture the Castle or Six of Crows. I think here, so this is where we need to start introducing the other books I'm considering reading into the mix here to finish this discussion. So one of the books I would like to read this month is The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang, and that's just because I have it as an ARC. It's coming out, I think, I want to say the beginning of August, like August 6th-ish. So it's sort of a chunky tome of a fantasy novel, and I'd like to get to that. If I end up doing that, I probably would read I Capture the Castle instead of Six of Crows. But if I don't end up getting to The Dragon Republic, then I'll read Six of Crows. So stay tuned. One of those 2, I think, will be my pick. And I'm excited about that. I would be happy to read either of those. Okay, so now that we've gotten through all those things I have to read for the rest of this month, we'll start talking about some of the things I would like to read And I think just doing the math, I'm thinking that I'll be doing pretty good if I can get to 2 of these last books I'm going to talk about. So I talked about the Dragon Republic. So that's one. Another one that I would like to get to this month is Cold Comfort Farm by Stella Gibbons. I really have wanted to read this for so long, and for whatever reason, it sounds good to me. So maybe that one. That's sort of a more like modern classic I wanted to read. I also was wanting to finally get to Northanger Abbey this month. I think that is not going to happen just based on everything else that's going on. So I will put this off once again. Really want to read this, but I want to enjoy it. I want to make sure I'm giving myself plenty of time to really soak it all in. Okay, and then the other 3 that I'm thinking about, 2 are mysteries, one's horror, and one is nonfiction. So Portrait of a Murderer, A Christmas Crime Story by Anne Meredith. So like I said, next month I want to do like a Christmas in July type review thing, and I'm thinking this might be a good candidate for that. This is another isolated this is an isolated closed circle mystery. This is another isolated closed circle mystery where they're all stuck at a truck stop. Though this isn't so much a mystery, I'm finding. I think from the more I was poking around, it's more of a thriller. I watched a little bit of Lala's thoughts about this. She's read this recently, Books and Lala, and it seems like this is more of a thriller. So actually, I may go ahead and punt this to next month because that doesn't necessarily, I think The Silent Patient will scratch my thriller itch. So I'll take this one out actually. So then the only other 2, one is Losing Earth by Nathaniel Rich, which I think is essentially like a history of the modern like environmental protection type movement, and Saw Kill Girls by Clara LeGrand. This is one that I got last year, and I didn't totally understand what the genre was until I got into it a little bit and realized, oh, I'm just not in the mood for that. And because it's Pride Month, and this is some like queer YA, I thought that might be appropriate, but I don't know. We'll see if I'm in the mood for something like this. So we'll see. Maybe not, but it's on my radar for this month as well. Okay, guys, so that is what I've read recently and what I might read next, my sort of mid-month check-in. A lot going on given what all I have to do the rest of the month. So we'll see. This is pretty ambitious, though usually I am pretty ambitious. We'll see what gets done. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Definitely let me know what your favorite thing that you've been reading so far this month is, how things are going so far. Got any fun travel plans since we're coming into the summer, at least for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere? Let me know in the comments below. And I think that will do it. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below. And I think that will do it for now. So I hope you're having a really lovely day, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!